The Jameson.
Right then I'm like, I think it's at 7. I should probably make sure before I go home.
I don't know.
Minutes, I got plenty of time.
This is what this is our speech. Yeah. That's how much we get I feel like somebody or looking to wish your mother?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Ready. Gouge.
Well, I think I'm gonna do the ballot one, that ballot one that's next to it, and then the one that's in front of the shed. I think it's
Pick it up
Hello,
like that.
Mr. Alexander.
the other ones that was five and back, like close together, and they're kind of chilling.
Test. So,
And then the one right by Robert.
Teresa McNamara. I know, I thought it was you just on her account or something. Fresh shave and the tile do wonders.
good evening. Good evening and welcome to town meeting. It's 7 p.m. and I'll call the meeting to order. My name is Newton Rose. I'm the moderator tonight. Before we start, I just want to thank you all for being here and participating in this tradition of hyper-local democracy. With that said, I'd like to start with just letting the folks up front, the select board, and municipal staff introduce themselves. We can start on that end.
Noah Schmidt, Select Board Member.
Scott Bates.
George Tucker Jr., Select Board.
Justin Hijack, Vice Chair.
Brett Sanderson, Chair.
Brendan McNamara, Municipal Manager.
Ula Cook, Town Clerk and Treasurer. Alicia Klaver, Recording Secretary.
Thank you. Also, if there are no objections tonight, Town Manager Brendan McNamara, Ambulance Service Chief Stephanie Grover, Fire Chief Ben Wallen, and Highway Foreman Ron Tarble may participate in tonight's discussion, even though they're not Ludlow voters. So tonight, there are 12 articles to be decided at this year's town meeting. Articles 1 through 5 will be decided tomorrow through Australian ballot, and Articles 6 through 12 will be decided tonight. You can find those on pages 10 and 11 of the annual report. You can also find management notes about those articles in the next few pages. We're going to start by discussing Articles 1 through 5. Even though they won't be decided tonight, we'll take time to learn about them and discuss them before voting tomorrow. But just a reminder, we can't take any action on those articles. Just reminders throughout the meeting to keep the discussion on the articles at hand. If you'd like to discuss something that's not on the article, there's time to do that at other business later on tonight. If you would like to speak, please come to the microphone and wait to be acknowledged and state your name. And remember that the microphone is also capturing the audio for the folks who are here virtually as well. So even if you have a big voice, please use that microphone. Also, only town voters can participate. If you're not a town voter and would like to participate, we'll just ask for unanimous consent before that happens. Any questions about the process so far? So we'll just start by discussing those first few articles. Article 1 is to elect town officers for the coming year. And Article 2 is, shall the voters of the town of Ludlow authorize the select board to finance the purchase of 2 new replacements of the engine and ladder truck with a municipal bond in the amount of $3,623,000 for the term not to exceed 20 years. And to start, I'll invite the Fire Chief, Chief Wallen, to discuss that to start.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. I want to start off by just saying that my name is Ben Whalen, and I'm your not so new fire chief at this point, and I am very, very humbled to be part of your community, to be here tonight speaking to you all, and to be trusted to lead this organization and agency for your town, and I appreciate you all very much. I am, when not out running calls or doing other things, you can find me at the firehouse, and I'm more than happy to visit with anyone who wants to stop in and ask questions or see the facilities, and I encourage you just to stop in and say hello. In a moment, we'll try and get a PowerPoint presentation up here for everybody. So as we start, we're here tonight to discuss the replacement of Ludlow Engine 3 and Ludlow Tower 1. We'll talk more about them in a second, and just kind of some food for thought. So in FY25, fire department ran 250 calls of service. So far in FY26, we are at 221. And so with that projection, come July 1st, I would predict that we will run somewhere around 330 calls. I believe over the past 5 years or so, and retired Chief Kalinda could correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere around 220 to 250 has really been the average call volume. Certainly this year we are seeing an increase that does not include any flooding or anything of that nature to occur. I am out assisting the ambulance on calls, but that percentage has not been great enough to make up that added 80-ish calls. All right, so we do have the PowerPoint on the board, and I'll try and just kind of talk about each of these things. This is just our cover page for it, and as we move on to the next slide, we talk about our vehicle replacement plan and the concept of how I would like to try and replace vehicles moving forward. The idea is that our pumper truck, our tanker trucks, and our pumper trucks, our tanker truck, and the tower truck will be replaced on longer term increments, and then we have specialty vehicles. The idea of the pumpers is that we're going to try and get those replaced every 20 years, and that the tower truck and the tanker truck will be replaced every 25 years. The hope is to keep the pumper trucks on a 10-year rotation. They're not going to be exact based on their current ages, but they should be pretty close. The idea is that with the tower and the tanker, they're not going out the door quite as much, that maybe we can keep the maintenance of those vehicles really good and be able to add some longevity to how long those vehicles can last in our fleets. And then the specialty vehicles, such as our utility vehicle, right now it's 20 years old. It's at end of life. We're going to work on replacing that. But the utility truck, the command car, and then our UTV and trailer will get replaced out of a different fund that we'll get to in a second, but those will be our specialty vehicles. Next slide, please. As we think about emergency vehicles and how those vehicles, what standards they have to meet and what laws and rules they have to meet, we look at NFPA 1900 and then OSHA CFR 1910 156. Each of those standards has different requirements. NFPA is a standard, whereas OSHA is actual law. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of particulars on that, but NFPA has a whole bunch of concepts. And next slide, sir. A whole bunch of different chapters based on each type of vehicle, and it discusses how long those vehicles should be used in service, and it also says how they should be built, what safety features they need to have, what maintenance you need to do, how to keep them. It goes down through the whole thing of keeping them safe and keep them effective, not only for the responders that are using them, but the community as well. As we look at that, part of NFPA does not have any specific date at which a vehicle needs to be replaced within its standard itself. However, it does recommend that it be replaced after no more than 25 years or when it no longer meets the safety standards. As we look at the vehicles that we're talking about today, one of those vehicles is well over that 25-year mark, and the other vehicle is at 21 years, but it does not meet any of those standards. And as we look through those standards, it specifically says that anything that was built prior to 2009 does not meet safety features and does not have implementations of modernized driving systems, suspension, mechanicals, etc. Next slide, sir. OSHA, again, is law, and the OSHA standard has not been revisited since 1980, and they are in the process of revising that and pushing new information out throughout the nation. One of the big things that is coming from that is OSHA is going to state that it is a 15-year replacement for vehicles. Certainly that is a difficult thing to think about, replacing these vehicles on a 15-year term. It has been, I think, sent back to committee, and the hope would be that I would certainly advocate for that 20+ year mark instead of a 15-year. Next slide. This is an important part from NFPA. It states that a fire apparatus is an emergency vehicle that must be relied on to transport firefighters safely to and from an incident and to operate reliably and properly to support the mission of the fire department. A piece of fire apparatus that breaks down at any time during an emergency operation not only compromises the success of the operation, but may jeopardize the safety of the firefighters relying on that apparatus to support their role in the operation. An old, worn out, or poorly maintained fire apparatus has no role in providing emergency services to a community. Next slide, sir. The first vehicle that we're going to talk about is Engine 3. Engine 3 is currently 21 years old. It went into service in 2004. A build time for this replacement vehicle is 2 to 3 years. That means that this truck would then be 23 to 24 years old before that replacement arrives. We've had, unfortunately, continuous maintenance issues that have caused life safety concerns both for the firefighters that are using it as well as the public that we are serving. We have had that pump break down on the truck while in the middle of operations about 5 times here in the past 6 months. So while firefighters are actively using that truck, the pump has stopped working. We have continued to do maintenance and will continue to do that maintenance. And unfortunately, parts are getting hard to find, and it's just kind of coming down to, is that continued maintenance worth it on that old of a vehicle? And again, the reliability issues just give real concern as we are moving forward. Next slide. Tower 1. Tower 1 was purchased back in 1994. It is 31 years old. So it's 31 years old. The build time to replace this vehicle is 3 to 4 years. It will be 34 to 35 years old when a new vehicle comes in if we replace it, if we order it today. The manufacturer that built that truck went out of business in 1998. It does not meet safety requirements or NFPA standards, and that is the same for engine 3 as well. And we've had some really costly maintenance, and parts are hard to find. My first 3 months as your fire chief, that truck was not here because it was sitting at a shop in Albany, New York, waiting for parts. And Mr. Manager, if we could actually go back to that first slide real quick. Excuse me, the slide before with engine 3.
So
Next one.
there's a
That one, perfect. All right, sorry to be going back and forth. I think it's really important to be as transparent here as possible. So the MSRP on this truck is $1,487,844. The sale price of that vehicle is $1,330,000. Onto the tower, the MSRP came in at $2,609,195 with a sale price of $2,303,000. As we have been talking about these vehicles and meeting with the public and answering questions, why do we need a tower truck in our town? What buildings would constitute us needing to have this type of vehicle in our community? What is its purpose? And the insurance the Insurance Services Office, through their PPC, which is a public protection classification, breaks down what type of vehicles you need within your community, and that sets your tax rate, your insurance rates and your premiums that you pay to your insurance companies. And that's no different than what the town has to do. Within that specific item for a tower truck, it specifically says that in areas of a town with 5 buildings of 3 or more stories or 35 feet tall, or a fire flow rate of 3,500 gallons per minute, you should have a tower truck or an aerial device that is able to flow water. The building we are in, and as you look down Main Street, is enough to say you need that vehicle. And I don't know how far back Ludlow has had a tower truck. Was it before this one replaced, Pete?
It was just a straight ladder before that, from the mid-'80s.
All right. So for an extended period of time, the town of Ludlow has had an aerial device in its community. And as we look throughout, those are all important things. As we talk about costs, next page, sir. I am not a taxpayer in Ludlow, and I think that's really important for me to say. But I also want to say that in Chester, where I do live, I used to serve on the select board. I worked through budgets. And I understand how important it is to spend your money wisely. And the truth is, the group that is here in front of you, we are here to serve you. And it is your money, and you need to know what's being done with it. The reason I'm proposing that we purchase 2 vehicles in 1 year as opposed to separating this out through a several-year basis is we are getting additional cost savings, and that's part of that sales price, by buying 2 at the same time, right? You go to a dealership, you say, hey, I'll take 2 if you give me a better deal. They're giving us a better deal. At the same time, fire equipment has been going up exponentially. In 2020, it went up 20% in costs in 1 year. So the further we wait to purchase these vehicles, the more that cost is going to go up. There's a 2025 price increase that is built into these numbers that is 4%. And we'll talk more about that, but that has not occurred yet. And I'll talk more about that in a second. The other concept is that if we are able to pay upfront for the vehicle at the time that we order it, the company we purchase it from will pay back 5% simple interest per day. It comes out to roughly $543,000 that they will pay back to the town of Ludlow by the time the vehicles are delivered if we pay upfront. That's roughly enough to cover at least almost 2.5 years of bond payments. I haven't built in the trade-in values for vehicles. They are not considered to be very much. And we will have a better opportunity to try and get those privately and see if we can sell them to a different department ourselves. but it would be somewhere around 50,000 is what I've been quoted on potentially getting back on trade-in value for both vehicles combined due to their age. Next slide, sir. So to break down those numbers a little bit more, the summary MSRP for both vehicles came in at $4,097,039. By purchasing both vehicles together and getting that over 11.5% discount, it drops that number $474,000 roughly and brings us to the bond number that's being proposed in Article 2 of $3,623,000. Of that $3,623,000, we take back that payback that they're going to give us, which is roughly $543,000, and that brings us to a total number of $3,079,550. That is over $1 million off of those MSRP prices. Next slide, sir. As I mentioned, the 2025 price increase has not occurred yet. If we are able to pass this tomorrow and the price increase has not happened, with the final numbers we have gotten through using the bid process, we would drop off another $232,000 off of that price. As soon as that price increase goes up, it will then add that $232,000 back onto it. Next slide. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yes.
Absolutely, sir.
I have a slew of questions. My name's Peter Gerard.
Peter, for the moderator, could I ask you to come up to the mic?
I think I'm loud enough everybody
That's
can
for
hear me.
everybody on, so 0 2. So they can hear you.
I think everybody can hear me. Is it on?
It is, sir.
Okay. My name's Peter Gerard. I have a slew of questions. One is, we've been throwing $30,000 into a fund for all these years. I don't know how many, but a bunch. Where's that money come into account for buying this equipment? I'm all for replacing equipment when it needs it, but we've been throwing money into this thing, $30,000 every year. Where's that money? And if we buy these, what's it gonna do to our tax rate? What's gonna happen there? I mean, I'm all for replacing equipment when it needs to be done, but ouch, you know?
I agree. Mr. Gerard, so good question. And so as we talk about that fire equipment fund, so right now I believe there's roughly $463,000 that is sitting in that
That's
account.
it?
That's it.
But is that thrown into this?
It is not. And so if you give me a moment, I'll explain to you why. So the concept is we have this fire equipment fund. It has roughly $460,000 in it. We have other vehicles and items that need replacement that are going to be capital items. And so as I have broken this down, as I initially proposed it to the select board, the idea of that fund is to take that and use it for vehicles such as the utility vehicle, the trailer, the UTV.
Equipment.
It is equipment. And also to take care of the other capital items such as our air packs. One air pack, roughly $10,000. They need to be replaced after every 15 years. So $10,000 for one air pack, those things need to get replaced. We think about our air compressor for certified breathing air to go into those compressors. Right now, those compressors are roughly $50,000. As we think about our hydraulic tools for vehicle extrication, $10,000 for each tool. Those items go on, and they need to come from somewhere. So instead of having them necessarily be a single bond item, those will come out of the capital plan for equipment because they are just that equipment. I think it's a great question. I thank you for asking.
But, so you're telling me you're not gonna use any of that money for this new equipment?
So at this time, I recommend not doing that based on the concept of getting that 5% simple interest payback on the amount of what we are taking out in a bond. So the idea of doing a 20-year bond, and what it would do is we're predicting it to be around a $220,000 yearly payment.
I don't agree.
Sir.
Dean Alexander, I just wonder, is there any debt expense on the bond which would offset the money that we might get back from the 5% back? You know, if we're paying 7% on a bond and getting 5% back, then that's not good
Sure.
money sense.
Currently, our bond, when we last looked at the bond interest rate, it was going to be in the neighborhood of 3%. So it was going to be, it would offset that.
Okay. And to add on that, as we move forward, the idea of, yeah, sorry. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say you're doing a great job, Ben. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that, sir, and I don't know your name. I'm sorry.
Steve Myers.
Steve Myers. I'm simply the face that's standing here, and the men and women of the fire department are the ones that keep this place going, and all of the emergency services in town, between the ambulance service, the police department, we are all here together and serving the purpose of providing public safety. I could not do anything that I do if it weren't for all the folks that are on the department and the days and times that they put into those calls and your emergencies. So they're the ones that thanks should go to, but I appreciate that very much, sir. Any other questions for me while I'm up here? Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. So, continuing on, we are now moving on to discuss Article 3. Again, this is just for discussion. You'll make the decision on Article 3 tomorrow with Australian ballot. Article 3, for the voters of the town of Ludlow, approve a 1% local option tax on meals, alcohol, rooms, and sales for the purpose of offsetting the cost of future town capital purchases and infrastructure projects. Is there discussion?
Yes, I want to speak. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, my name is Brendan McNamara, Town Manager. So we've had a couple, I've said when I came here 2 years ago now, feels like, there were two things that were brought to me that said, we want you to revisit this for the town. One was the merger between the town and the village, which is in process. We'll get to that at another time. The other was a local options tax, which here we are. And I said we've had a couple of public forums for this in the last 2 or 3 months, pushing back to October. We have had a committee that looked at the option tax and proposed what we were going to do, propose to the select board to essentially get it on the ballot for vote tomorrow. You know, what is the options tax? Right there, it's a 1% tax on basically taxes, things that have a sales tax within the town of Ludlow. I know that one of the proposals with this is, you know, again, I'm not, as Ben mentioned, I don't live in Ludlow. I spend a lot of time here. And one of the first things that we thought about this is, it's a tax. Like, are we taxed enough? And that is a valuable question. But to kind of piggyback on the question that Mr. Gerard had, how are we going to pay for these and, you know, these capital equipment repairs and what's it going to do to our options tax? I jokingly said the other day that I feel like my job is all I do is bring problems to people, whether it's the public, the select board, the departments, I come with problems. With that being said, I do like to try and come with a solution as well. And taking a long, hard look at the options tax for this town, speaking to a number of select board members, municipal managers in surrounding towns that have this and what benefit it gives to their town, especially in a town that's as unique as ours, is really a positive, and I wouldn't say this if I honestly didn't mean it, is a positive solution for some of the upcoming expenses in our town. So options tax, 1%, in addition to any state business taxes in town. This is how it's calculated. Sales tax, 6%. Local meals, e-meals tax is 9%, so then alcohol, 10% tax. Rooms tax is 9%. It is an additional 1% tax on top of those that is then collected by the state, redistributed to the town. the state keeps 30% of that number. So at this point, as I mentioned, the state keeps 30%. There are discussions, and it is being pushed by VLCT, that towns, the state is being encouraged to have the towns keep 80%. Because right now the state does have a $13 million surplus regarding the 30% tax that they've collected from towns that have subscribed to this tax. If you look at this numbers here, this is for 2000, basically the year ending 2023 fiscal year. We would have generated, what we sent to the state was $998,356.25. The state deduction is $299,506.87, which would leave the balance of the town would have collected $698,848.38. Now that, again, this is proposed as it is earmarked for infrastructure and capital projects. This does not go into the general fund. This does not just get dispersed to, offset the tax rate if we have a surplus. This is for specific needs that we have in town, and some costs that I always show you at the end. Unfortunately, at this point where we are inevitable. Replacement of our fire trucks. Chief Whalen mentioned it'd be $220,000 a year for a bond payment. After we use the return on our investment for the purchase, that's very easily paid for by the options tax. We have major repairs, upwards of $11 million in dam replacements for the rehab of the dams over the next 10 years. That is going to be partially federally funded, but the town of Ludlow does have a share. So this, again, is a solution being proposed that is used by a number of municipalities. I think tonight and tomorrow alone, 12 to 13 municipalities put this to vote on the floor. Closest one being Springfield is voting tomorrow for an options tax as well. Just kind of a breakdown of contributions for the town. If it goes, there we go. So this is based on the 2022 census numbers. Average income in Ludlow, $49,213. Less your taxes, $40,059.38. So, and we just took a guess. If you spend 10% of your income in Ludlow, that's $4,000, $4,005.94. An additional 1% would cost you $40. Obviously, that's going to be skewed. This is going to affect different people differently. But the bottom line here is, if you look at the bottom, contributions by residents, that number is $52,078. Minus the 30% that the state takes, that leaves a contribution from residents in town of $36,340.17. The bottom line there, so the difference, the $662,509.21, is contributions from our visitors who come into town when our population swells. This is a way for the town to generate revenue without to pay for projects without affecting your property tax. And that's really what we're tasked with looking at. So, how can we pay for a new fire truck that, if we don't have a way to offset that for that period of time, $200,000 is going right on top of the municipal budget. So this is, again, a solution that we look at for, some problems that are staring us very directly in between the eyes, and things that we know are only getting more expensive, and things that are going to pop up. God forbid we have another flood event, and we are scrambling for money. FEMA money has started to come in a little bit. Holy cow. But we got $495,000 today. It was a good day. But, it only took 2 years, so, but again, I think I mentioned it when we were setting our tax rate. If we wanted to help offset our tax rate, we were so tight with money that it wasn't even an option. This gives us a little more leverage. Here's a list, this is on the website, on our website, it's been posted online. There are things that are exempt from taxes, basically anything that's exempt from sales tax. Automobile sales, groceries. This provides you the whole list. Medical supplies, over-the-counter drugs, prescription meds. Those are things that are exempt from this tax. Because we realize, it is a wide-reaching. It's not going to affect myself the same as it's going to affect someone else, and we realize that. But this is more of a across-the-board, how can we provide the services that this town needs and desires without burdening the property tax and municipal budget. Here are some of just the 4 projects here that are upcoming that have a substantial amount of money. Flood control, dam rehabilitation. Looking at an $11 million cost share for the town over 10 years. Replacement of the fire apparatus that Chief Whalen spoke about. Water and wastewater upgrades within the town. We have a very aging infrastructure. Also the flood resiliency and mitigation project. We're working on a few right now that would encompass the Little League field, the old Timber Inn site, possibly the old mill on Mill Street that would help to mitigate flood levels within the town. If that's a part of a grant, an overreaching federal grant, which is a wonderful project and it would benefit the town. But also if we are awarded the grant, the town's cost share is upwards of $300,000, which if you were to go and do that, put that immediately in the yearly budget, that would have a drastic effect on your tax rate immediately without even addressing services that are, we'll call day-to-day operations. So again, that's really it. Any questions? Obviously, this was the local options tax committee. It was myself, Julie Nicole, Noah Schmidt, George Tucker, Julie Strong, Ryan Silvestri. We had a couple of, I thanked them for their work and their insight. And yeah, any questions? Mr. Gerard.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, does the state of Vermont get to sit on this money for the year and we don't get any?
I believe it is paid quarterly to us.
It's paid quarterly.
Yes.
Do we get the interest that they get to use that money for?
No.
No. Also, the dam. You told us it was going to be 2.5. Does that mean the state and the feds are not going to kick in anything to fix this thing? Because they used to in the old days.
For what?
To repair the dam that you
Well,
say.
we are in, so the 2.5 was covered by the feds. That's for the engineering. The repair is they're kicking in 30 million. Right now, the town's on the hook for the other 11. I agree with you on that.
All right.
Mr. Alexander.
Thank you again. I have some problems with the motion itself. Is pretty basic, okay? Specifically, future town capital purchases and infrastructure projects. A couple years ago, this country passed $1 trillion infrastructure bond, and it included a lot of things that were not infrastructure.
Sure.
Okay? So I'm not happy with the vagueness.
Okay.
However, I think I'm in support of this. I really do. However, I just want to be sure that each of the projects that the money that is designated for is voted on as well. That it's not just the 5 people on our select board that decide we're going to spend $25 million on a spa, and the people don't, So, because I find when we give the government more money, they spend more money. So I know a lot of these things are things that we are going to need, but I just want to make sure that the town still, the people of the town, still have the final say on where the money is spent. And if it's not spent over a certain period of time, which would be a great thing, is it so bound into capital funds and infrastructure that it can't be used to reduce our other taxes? So those are my questions.
Sure. Thank you. So I would expect, in the way we have put it forward, is that yes, so this is a fund that is not to be used by Brendan McNamara to sign off and say, hey, we gotta fix a water main.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, yes.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So
We have a lot of
we,
experience.
it would be something that this is to offset projects that are major projects that would come before this body and be voted on to say, all right, this year we are going to need $1.2 million to fix X, Y, and it would be voted on out of the local option tax fund. So,
But is that spelled out in the, I don't know, the law or whatever?
I believe in the statute, it has, those funds need to be voted. Yes. And, so, and I'm sorry, your second question was?
What it was earmarked for, how we were earmarking the funds.
Oh, no, okay,
No,
so
the question
could we
more
use
had
it
do
to?
with the binding the money to capital and infrastructure, and, I mean, $600,000 a year is a lot of money. You know, I mean.
So I
but
believe.
There's no 20-year limit on
No.
this, there's no automatic revisiting of the options tax.
It can always be rescinded, but I think to your point is that if we were sitting on, after 10, 12, 15 years, we were sitting on $15 million, and someone came forward at a board meeting, much like, and you know, you can propose to the select board to have an article added for vote. Someone could say, I would like to propose that the board use $1 million or whatever of excess from the local options tax funds, because we have this to help offset the tax rate. That could be done in the same means as a vote.
By an article at
Yes.
the town meeting.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just,
Sorry, either one?
because I'm naive, I'm sorry, the 1% is only on liquor, meals, housing, or is it across the board?
It is.
Gallon of gas gets it or no?
Correct. Yeah, it
Gallon
is.
of gas gets it.
Yeah, so this is what is called it is referred to as a destination tax. So if you think of it, something that has a sales tax, if you take delivery of it in Ludlow or in a municipality that has that tax, that is taxed. Yes.
Thank you.
Jared?
Good evening, Brendan. Just a follow-up question. You had stated that it would be used for fire apparatus. So am I to understand that if it passes and the bond vote for the new fire apparatus passes, that this money will be paid to offset the $220,000 a year payments? So the new fire apparatus won't actually increase our tax rate?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Mealy. I had a couple questions about this. This has come up a few times in the past decade, I'd say, and we voted it down. This is an open checkbook. I mean, I get that you're applying it to capital and infrastructure purposes. We have other apparatuses for that. This hits our people that are trying to run a business in this town. And if you're gonna do this, and I've seen other towns do it, from one end of the state to the other, there should be a start date and an end date. It shouldn't just be open forever. If we need to gain some funds, and this helps us do that, do a 5-year plan. One thing that I don't like here is nowhere that I've seen on these PowerPoint presentations what our grand list is. That's our driving force of our tax rate. So why don't we have our municipal tax rate up? What's $1 million take? How many pennies or dollars is it gonna increase our tax rate? So we're talking about $900,000, $1 million bucks. On our grand list, we'll raise our tax rate how much? Anyone?
$1 million?
Yeah.
Just for 1 year?
Yeah.
Because 1 penny raise is like 150,000.
Okay. So that's just good information to have here. But I'd support this option tax a little bit better if there was a timeline. There are things that happened in Irene, like Commonwealth Avenue Brook is supposed to be fixed by now. We didn't take care of business when we were supposed to. We pushed it off, it got more expensive, now we're talking about a 1%. Some things we have to do in a timely fashion and just spend the money. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Chris.
Andrea Goldman, 43 Andover Street. Want to say that we are overwhelmingly for this local options tax. We've had a house here for 22 years, and I think living here 4 now, full-time. And constantly, we hear, we don't have the money, we don't have the money, we don't have the money. But what's interesting is when we bring up what's a tax, or we have to invest in something, it's once a year we get this crowd. But this crowd isn't here all the time, and I ask everybody to please consider there are constant needs for this town, and there are so many meetings, but so many of us don't attend all of these meetings. We need to invest in our town. We need to invest in our infrastructure. And guess what? We could do it with the people that are coming to the town and utilizing that same infrastructure. For that $40 that possibly we're spending, and I know there's a lot of assumptions in it, it's going to be more than made up for. The math shows it in what we can bring into town, what we can bring into our tax coffers to pay for safety as well as improvement of the quality of life here in town. Please, everybody, vote yes tomorrow. Thank you.
Any other comments on Article 4? Article 3? Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I just want to clear it up one more time. Every dollar spent in Ludlow gets the 1%.
Well, not, so not.
So it's just on liquor, housing.
There, so, Steve, if you look there, it is anything that has a 6% sales tax, meals, a 9% meals tax, alcohol tax of 10%, or a rooms tax of 9%, that is applied.
So what I spend at La Valley's every week has
Correct.
1% extra.
Correct.
So it does scare me, and I'm not against this by any means. I've been at all the meetings, we know about this, but for someone like Brett, Scott, myself, I spend an immense amount of money at La Valley's every week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not $40 a year for me. It's $40 a day for me. And I'm not anywhere near the largest contractor around here. So that makes me say I'm gonna go to Arcade Wilds.
They have it too.
Pay it there too.
Right.
You're gonna pay it.
It started off with me saying I'm very naive on this. I just want to go there. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what it is. I am not against it. I just trying to figure it out. And for some people, it's a lot more money. That's all I was asking. It was clearing up, not really. I'm not trying to make a big singer point here. You know what I mean? I was just trying to figure out where I'm coming from, because for some people like myself, it's not $40. It's substantially more. Yeah.
So just go to New Hampshire like we usually do.
Yeah, but if you deliver here, you get it
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
So yeah. I was just trying to clear it up. Thank you.
Sure. If the material is delivered out of town, it doesn't get that 1% added to it. Only if you pick it up here, if it's delivered in town, with that 1% be in effect.
Thanks, Pete.
Hearing no more discussion, I think we can move on to discuss Article 4. Shall the voters of the town of Ludlow authorize the select board to appoint a town clerk as provided in 17 VSA section 2651E? Any discussion on this?
I will just speak on the reason why we have done this. So this is something, and it follows with the next article as well as the town clerk and treasurer. The town was looking to, as you know, there's usually a voted position. Not every town is nearly as fortunate to have the person sitting to my left that watches over their funds and takes care of them and watches their town manager and makes sure he doesn't go crazy. So not all of the towns are fortunate to have Ludlow. Yes. some point, Ula will unfortunately, in 10 to 15 years, will probably retire. And 20. Yeah, 20 maybe. And we will need to have someone fill her shoes. From the purview of the town manager, select board, it is just the numbers that we're talking about in terms of money and the calculations that she just did here off the top of her head is something that you need someone who is highly qualified for. And unfortunately cannot be left to a situation where if we had an election and nobody ran, we have an even bigger problem. So this is just changing it to kind of support the town, protect us a little bit better for that daunting day when Ula does retire and we have to find someone to replace her. So that's really the crux of this, these next two articles. So thank you.
And I'll read the next article, which is similar. Article 5, so the voters of the town of Ludlow authorize the select board to appoint a town treasurer as provided in 17 VSA section 2651F. Any further discussion on this? Yeah.
Chris Mealy again. So yeah, Article 4 and 5, I work with town clerks from one end of the state to the other, town clerks, town officials. And we like our elected officials in the state of Vermont. We like them local. We're one of the only states in the union that aren't county government. That's why we're here today, because we have that right to do this. How many things do you like that get decided on in Montpelier that we don't get to choose? All right? That's why we have elected officials. The select board already has a mechanism. We should give this opportunity. We have an elected official now. Brandon just said how great of a job she's done for the past how many years now, Ula?
Going on 29.
Right? And you took over for who?
Jane Creasa.
And how long was she here?
She was here 25.
Okay. So our elected officials are there, and they did a good job for us. And it is that check and balance. Brandon even said it's for her to keep an eye out for him doing something crazy. Not that you would, but just using your words. Everybody goes a little rogue. But if we do an appointed position, that's it for elected. You won't go back. And those appointed people answer to who? To you guys, not to us anymore. So now they're just an employee. And when you 5 selectmen, when we can't find 5 elected selectmen, then what do? Oh, we're going to appoint those? Or we'll just go to a town manager. So we start slipping and eroding away our local government. And it's a very dangerous slope to go on. So why be so hasty to remove elected officials now when we haven't even had an opportunity to vote to see who we get? There are other ways to provide this service. If we get an elected official that needs help, we can manage in and hire a financial advisor and professional. Let's go down that path before we get rid of our local officials. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. So now we can continue to Article 6 through 12. And in these articles, you are here to make the decisions on those articles only. We'll be using Robert's Rules of Order, except when modified by Vermont state law. What that means is that for every article on the list, someone can make a motion to adopt it, and someone can second that motion. After that happens, and only after that happens, can discussion begin. That discussion should be relevant to that specific article. Every voter has the right to participate before anyone may speak a second time, and only registered voters in Ludlow can make motions and vote. When the debate is over, we will vote on the article. Everyone who agrees says aye, all those against to say no. We can't go back to previous articles once we've moved on, so just keep in mind that we can't go backwards. When we go on to the next one, we can't go to the one before it. Any questions about the process before I read Article 6? All right. Article 6. Shall the voters of the town of Ludlow fix the salaries of the select board, cemetery commissioners, and trustees of public funds the same as last year? That being select board, $1,600, cemetery commissioners, $900, trustees of public funds, $400. Is there a motion to adopt the article? Terry?
I'll move to adopt Article 6.
Is there a second? We're here. What's your name?
How do you spell his last name? L-A-G-R.
Any discussion on Article 6? Hearing no discussion, we can now move to vote on Article 6. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the article is passed. Moving on to Article 7. Shall the town of Ludlow collect taxes on real property in installments, taxes to be paid to the town treasurer on August 15th, 2025, November 15th, 2025, February 15th, 2026, and May 15th, 2026, and must be delivered to the town treasurer and postmarked on or before the due date. Is there someone who would like to make a motion? Yep. Your name?
Linda Thompson.
And a second? Next to you.
Colleen Palmer.
Any discussion on Article 7? Hearing none, we can move to a vote. All those in favor of Article 7 indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the article is passed. Moving on to Article 8. Shall the voters of the town of Ludlow authorize the select board to borrow money to pay the necessary expenses of the town and pay any of its indebtedness? Is there a motion for Article 8? Pam O'Neill? Is there a second? Any discussion on Article 8? Yes.
What was it last year, by, just out of curiosity?
300,000 last.
Sorry? What was the budget last year? It's 4.9, what was it last year? 4.1, 2?
Not on the, it's
We're-
on the wrong, not on the.
We're on Article 8 right now.
We're on E. Beg your pardon.
That's okay. Any discussion on Article 8? We can move to vote on Article 8. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the article is passed. Moving on to Article 9. Shall the voters of the town of Ludlow vote a specific amount in lieu of a rate on a dollar on the grand list as set forth in the select board's budget and the Windsor County budget? Then the select board shall set the tax rate necessary to raise the amount after the grand list has been completed and lodged in the office of the town clerk. The amount to be raised by taxes will be $4,933,795.40. Is there a motion to adopt Article 9?
I move to adopt it. Dan Buckle.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce Schmidt. Now is there any discussion?
Okay, can somebody answer my question? What was it last year?
Sure. Yep, so, Mr. Gerard, last year, the proposed budget was 4.6. So,
Went up 300,000.
yep, so this year, you know, the select board and myself, you know, I thank the board for the time they put in to develop this budget. It's a 5.3% increase from last year, which is actually down a percentage point from the previous year. The items that we went through are really things that we feel will continue to give the town the services that they need. You know, a lot of this, some of these things are unfortunately uncontrollable for us with some of the insurances that are involved, et cetera. That's about 3%. But again, I just wanted to thank you all for coming. You know, many of you came to budget meetings, spoke at select board meetings. This board, you know, I lean on them a lot, and we have a lot of meetings just to get this done, and put forward a budget that, you know, we're comfortable with, you know, and they can say, yes, I can stand by this without having to really, feel like we're not having too much fluff. Yes.
Is the fire truck thrown in on this as part of it and the dam part of it?
No, sir. That would be on a previous budget.
Fran Kissel, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to add $2,500 to the budget for the Okemo Valley Technical Rescue.
Do you have a second?
Okay.
All right, so now you've made a amendment to this to add $2,500. Now we can discuss just that amendment to the budget. After we finish that, whether it's voted, whether it's accepted or not, then we'll move back to the original motion.
First, I'd like to apologize that this wasn't in the book. This is a new organization. It's a 501(c) that was started by Stephanie Grover, the Ludlow ambulance chief, Peter Kalenda, the fire chief at the time when we started it, Billy Austin, the Mount Holly fire chief, Bob Glidden, the Proctorsville fire chief, Chris Marks, the captain of Proctorsville, and myself, the deputy chief of Ludlow. And this is to raise money to provide training and equipment to a technical rescue company group that would cover Proctorsville, Ludlow, Mount Holly, and Plymouth. We're asking for $2,500.
Any other discussion on this amendment? Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there could be a ruling on can the budget be added to without a warning?
Because it's voted from the floor, I believe we can.
I'm sorry?
Because it is voted on the floor, it can be made if we properly amend it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, so next we can vote on this amendment, which would, this math is correct, make the budget $4,936,295.40. All those in favor of this amendment say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The amendment is passed. Is there any discussion on the amended article? Hearing no more discussion, we'll now vote on Article 9 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amended article is passed. Article 10. All right, get ready, it's a long one. Shall the voters of the town of Ludlow authorize the select board to maintain a capital fund to support the following vehicle and equipment purchases, building maintenance and repairs used to fund programs? Highway Equipment Fund, $30,000. Fire Equipment Fund, $30,000. Police Equipment Fund, $5,000. Recreation Facilities Fund, $10,000. Ludlow Town Hall Facility Fund, $10,000. Ludlow Community Center Facilities Fund, $5,000. Black River Senior Center Facilities Fund, $2,500. Black River High School Building Fund, $5,000. Dam Spillway Fund, $125,000. The amount to be raised in taxes will be $222,500. Is there a motion on Article 10?
Move the motion.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Terry Carter. Discussion on Article 10.
Bruce Schmidt, 988 Chapman Road. I'd like to ask the select board, with this, with these, numbers, what are some of the plans that are being talked about with the old high school?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Schmidt. We had a 5-year agreement with the high school to lease that building. That 5 years has expired according to this budget. Moving forward, we don't know what the answer is with that building, but we're going to form a committee and start exploring the avenues in which to better utilize that building or more efficiently utilize that building.
In reference to that committee, there's a whole lot of things gonna be going on in education and specifically around Ludlow and Mount Holly. I would just ask that that committee and encourage the school board members to be part of that committee because I mean, there's the strong possibility that that building may be used back for public education. So I'd hate to, in years past, select board and school boards were working parallel and there wasn't a big crossover. And as we move forward with what's happening in the state and what the governor's proposing, it's gonna be really important. And we can find ourselves in a good spot because we have that building so close to the elementary school.
Thank you, that's a great idea.
Any other discussion on Article 10? Hearing none, we can move to vote on Article 10. All those in favor of Article 10, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 10 is passed. Article 11, shall the voters of the town of Ludlow appropriate the sum of $7,250 to the mover, formerly the current, to support the public transit bus service to Ludlow from Bellas Falls and from Rutland. Is there a motion for Article 11?
So moved.
Pam O'Neill, is there a second? Any discussion about Article 11? All right. All those in favor of Article 11, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 11 is passed. To end, we have Article 12, to transact any other business necessary and proper when met. And I'll invite the manager to start that section.
I'll project my voice a little bit more. So, just wanted to take a moment, thank the community for coming out tonight. It was a great turnout. Thank you. You know, this is one of the things that is a nice part of being a town manager, even though I've been pacing for the last 12 hours. But we're okay. So I'd like to say thank you to you all for coming out. Thank you for the select board for their support, you know, through the budget time. This is a very, you know, it's a tumultuous time of year getting things ready to go. You know, to my staff, our staff here at the town, thank you for all they do every day. They're the real ones that go in and get things done and have our town operating as well as it does each and every day. So I am beyond thankful to them. I do want to give a tremendous thanks to Kevin McPherson. Ula and I came up here at about 3 o'clock today and we're looking at this space, and I think it goes sometimes undersaid what Kevin does in the time he spent. This is just a beautiful facility that we have here. And Kevin treats it like it's his own living room, and it's gorgeous. So a big thanks to Kevin. You know, this is my second town meeting here. It's a true joy to be able to be a part of the town of Ludlow. One of the best decisions I've ever made and been given the opportunity to do. It's been an interesting 2 years for me, for sure. And, you know, started off running and we're continuing going. And there are, you know, aside, I mentioned the staff and the department heads and each and every one member of the staff of the town of Ludlow. And I, as a municipal manager, sometimes it is, you know, it can be difficult because you feel like you're hanging in the wind sometimes, but I have a tremendous amount of people that I can lean on that is outside of their purview. A number of them are in this room that I talk with and I ask for their advice, which is a huge part of that. One of those people, unfortunately, that I lean on a tremendous amount is this is his last town meeting. and he's gonna kill me for this, but it goes without saying. Chief Jeff Billings is retiring as chief of police from town of Ludlow after nearly 37 years here. And Chief, we're gonna thank you so much. Chief is one of those individuals that I lean on constantly and call him a friend. Well, maybe not after tonight, but Chief, thank you for all you've done, for all you do, and I'm still going to lean on you, so it's very much appreciated. So that's all I have to say, and again, thank you all very much.
Any other business? Yes.
Just a couple things. One is, do you think next year we could do something about the markers that, like the crosswalks and stuff, because they're all gone. The turn parts, the one in the Shaws, you can't even tell where the turn lane is. Coming off the mountain, you can't tell where the turn lanes are. We need to get a better paint that lasts through the winter. I know they use a lot of salt on that road up there, and it beats the heck out of it, but the paint doesn't even last half the year. We need to do something about that. Also, with all the stuff that we voted on in here, what's our tax rate gonna be per 100?
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
The grand list hasn't been launched.
Bruce Schmidt?
Bruce Schmidt. I noticed there was a comment on this last article about some discussion about whether to consider allowing optional delivery methods of the town report. I just want to state that I would not change that. I think there's a budget of $5,000 on a $4 million budget. I think this is a way that people get information. Many people don't get to the town hall, don't take the time to opt in, and I would encourage the select board to continue with the town report and the mailing it out and spending the money.
I'm in full favor of that.
Thanks,
But could we make it one per household? We get more than one. We don't need more than one.
I'm sure there's a way of nailing it down, I'm sure.
I try to clean it up as much as I can. I want to save every penny.
Yes.
Just like to say I'm proud to be a resident of Ludlow, in the state of Vermont, and this great country we live in. We've got a lot of problems in this country, but we're a strong people. And I would like to ask the board in the future to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Again, starting from a place of naivete, I would like to consider myself at the young version of the older people here and the old version of the younger people here. I love you three on the board being the youth in this town, but I have a ton of friends who at a social occasion will talk these issues out. They don't know that town meeting is even happening tonight. So somewhere from 30 to 40 or 25, we need to engage these people. Like the beauty of town meeting day, the direct democracy that we see in Vermont and only in Vermont it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful thing. And it needs somehow, I don't know if it's TikTok or whatever the kids do these days, but we need to engage the people 5 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, and everyone that's here. Like we need to figure out as a town, be it a stupid Facebook page or something, but we need to get the people that care and live and spend their 1% and spend their lives here to this meeting. So I'm just asking of the board and everyone involved, let's figure out a way to get more of this town in this room on this night. Thank you.
We will.
I'm short, and I'm also Kelly Stetner of the Black River Action Team. I live in Springfield. I'm not a Ludlow resident.
If there are no objections, Kelly Stetner can address the group. All right, go ahead.
No one's shouting. That's a good thing. I just want to let everybody know that there are some flyers out there that I'm trying to promote a new project we're working on in the Black River watershed. We're calling it Culvert Crawlers. Some of you, if you were around Cavendish last summer, you might have seen a bunch of students out there with safety vests on, mapping our culverts, looking at our ditches, clearing them of vegetation, talking with homeowners. We talk a lot about infrastructure, and there are ways that we can come together as a community, as volunteers, with help to keep our culverts functioning as they should, so that they're causing less road damage. Our emergency crews aren't going to have to be out there helping us out. And if anybody would like to learn more about it, maybe join a work day, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
One more thing that really probably don't want to even hear. Tomorrow, we're going to vote on the school budget. They sent out a booklet, which is very poorly done, because it tells us it's going to cost us, I don't know, $10 million for the two schools, which is roughly $50,000 a child. They're not telling us how much we're going to get from our Act 60 money back, to tell us how it's going to offset that, which is really disappointing to me, because I don't want to hear $5 million for Mount Holly and $5 million for Ludlow. I want to hear what it's going to cost me in my wallet. I'm all for keeping a school, don't get me wrong, but they've got to be a little realistic on this budget, and it's way out of whack. Is this for their improvements? It doesn't really say in the book. I know they got to hire all these special ed teachers and all this stuff for every student, and I understand that. That's the new rules and regulations. But somewhere in there, it's got to be more clarity in that booklet than what they put out. Because it really tells me I'm not going to vote for this if it's going to cost us $50,000 a child. If I had a child, I'd homeschool them. I'm sorry, but that's expensive.
And if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Peter and Don?
Yes. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Voting will be tomorrow in person.